Hi, I'm Wesley Castillo. 2016 is a year for the history books. Against all odds, America elected the first president who had no prior experience in government service. The following year, we have seen a resurgence in protests across the country. It seems that people have now more than ever wanted to make their voices heard. For better or for worse, these protests have created a lot of buzz and essentially started a conversation. In addition to that, it shows how our Constitution is very necessary for our nation. Who would have thought a document written over 230 years ago still affects Americans today? It seems very unlikely that the Founding Fathers knew just how effective the Constitution's role in American society could be. However, the Constitution was intentionally written to be vague. Its broad interpretations of the inner workings of our government system that make judicial review of it important. Its principles help determine what is constitutional or unconstitutional about laws our government enacts. For these reasons, it is no surprise that Americans have high approval of our Constitution. We don't disagree with the Constitution's content, we disagree with the interpretations of what other Americans think the Constitution is about. When people think about the Constitution, they always point to the First Amendment as being the most essential of the 33 amendments. You know, the whole Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Yeah, you get the gist. Anyway, it basically guarantees that the government cannot censor you for the beliefs you have. Despite how obvious of a human right that sounds, for our nation, it is unfortunately an unconditional luxury we get to have. Many countries impose hate speech laws or just ban all criticisms of their government altogether. For example, countries like North Korea, China, and Burma restrict all rights of dissenters and media dissidents. In the US, we can never have it that way. It goes against the very moral values that our country was founded on. Our Constitution is very much meant to hold our government accountable. One very prominent and widely debated example is the Second Amendment, and you can easily see why. The fact that it is in our nation's founding laws that we are allowed to own varying weapons designed to police our government is revolutionary. It was unheard of at the time that a country would give this much freedom to their population so that they can counter any attacks or forms of repression from their government. What the US did set an example for other countries such as Mexico and Guatemala to oppose their own form of Second Amendments. Those two are the only countries that have carbon copies of it. Another less extreme way that the government polices themselves is through the 20th and 22nd Amendments. These amendments have term limits for the President and Congress, which is a very good thing. Imagine if the same incompetent people got to keep their positions over and over again. We would be an oligarchy with that much authority. But with these laws, it allows the population to elect new talent, that people they believe will be able to bring the welcome change to the area in which they've been elected to govern. There are also safeguards in the event that a president happens to be too incompetent to fulfill his basic duties in the 25th Amendment. They can leave voluntarily or go out in a 2/3 vote by Congress. The Constitution also exists as one of the greatest code of laws the world has ever seen. There have been many great examples of laws set in stone throughout history, such as the Code of Hammurabi, eye for an eye, or the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not steal. But a Constitution exists as something more, the primary defender of the American public during trials. This is heavily evidenced in the 4th to 9th Amendments. They all guarantee a fair trial for the average American in time of accusations. The 4th Amendment protects your property from being searched by the authorities without a warrant. The 5th Amendment guarantees that you cannot be tried for the same crime, essentially a one-and-done deal during trials. It also prevents you from testifying against yourself or having your property seized without compensation. The 6th and 7th Amendments guarantee you a fair and speedy trial, and the right to a jury presiding over your trial. The 8th Amendment outlaws excessive bail or cruel and unusual punishment. Finally, the 9th Amendment, which forces your constitutional rights to be in place no matter what. Anyway, the point is that without these amendments, criminal trials would be very aggressive. The governing authority could sentence you to very cruel punishments, and you would have no one to back you up. It just goes to show how the Constitution gives us our very basic essentials. As great as all of what I have listed, the Constitution is not the most perfect document in existence. We had grave injustices such as slavery that was allowed to occur at the time of the Constitution's ratification. At the same time, this is one of the greatest aspects of our Constitution's purpose. The Constitution is meant to be altered if something doesn't work by amending it. That is why the 13th and 15th Amendments were conceived. They abolished slavery, made all former slaves U.S. citizens, and gave them the right to vote. New amendments can also be created to render amendments outdated, like the 18th Amendment. It started prohibition, and then the 21st Amendment came out to cancel out that one. Then there are amendments designed for certain demographics, like the 19th and 26th Amendments. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote, and the 26th Amendment gave 18-year-olds the right to vote. Women are half the population, and 18-year-olds fighting our wars, so I don't know why it didn't come sooner. But that's the beauty of the Constitution. The change can always come when it is necessary. It's the best explanation for why the Constitution will not be going obsolete anytime soon. That when national change is needed, we can always amend it into our nation's fabric.